Ready? Hi friends!
Hello!
We are here today to bring you a very exciting video, and that video is our top reads for 2017.
I had no idea how she was going to word that, so spirit fingers.
We each decided to narrow down our best of lists, which we actually put up on the blog as well. You guys will probably see it if I'm able to link to them down below. So we have narrowed down to a top 10. Yeah.
It's definitely shorter than that. The blog is actually kind of more fun, and we do encourage you guys to just think of like the same categories because it's kind of hard narrowing it down, but also fun, like just making several categories so you don't have to miss anything out.
What I did was really just pick the books that got a full 5 stars from me because that was the easiest way for me to do it, and it just so happened that I had almost exactly 10. I decided not to include the manga that I've read because that's part of a series and that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, those are very episodic, so
yeah,
it's in the context of the entire series, if that makes sense.
Right, so mostly printed words only kind of things. Right?
And I also didn't include rereads because if I had, then this list
true.
would be very different.
So it's really just more like what was new for 2017 and what was just strictly just book print and no pictures. Because if that were the case, I would totally add, and it's out right now, Double Date. It's Batman 37, I think, where Clark and Diana, no, not Diana, haha, Clark and Lois, the old pre-52 Superman and his wife go on a double date with Bruce and Selena. So that was
so
fun.
cute.
I had to put that in there because special mention, because I can't get over it. It's like my weekly obsession.
So we are gonna start talking about our 10 favorite reads of 2017. Mine are just gonna be in the order that I read them because that was the easiest way for me to sort them. I don't know how Macky is doing his.
I'm totally doing from like 10 to 1. The 10th that I enjoyed the most, all the way. Yeah, I'm just, my brain is organized that way.
Then
I can totally go first. Funny story how I got this book, but it's called The Adventurers Guild. I actually had to score it off of somebody at a BEA this year and said, hey, you got any copies of that, and where did you get it? And just like, here, have this one. So I got it, and it was fun. One of the few books ever that has elves and dwarves and humans
that's right,
that I actually really liked, and it's written from the perspective of like a half-elf and from the perspective of, I want to say, a human, a merchant guy, and it's co-written by Zach Lauren Clark and Nick Eliopoulos. So it's kind of cool how they're writing both perspectives for a seamless story, and I totally enjoyed it. It's my number 10 for the year.
Shocker, there's a Sarah J Maas book starting off my list. This is obviously A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. This is the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, so plot-wise I can't really tell you much, just in case you haven't read the other 2 books.
It's that deep into the thing.
Circles around the main character Farah and the people that she loves and cares for deeply, and in this one there is a war going on, and that's pretty much all I'll say. I mean, I have loved Sarah J Maas's writing from the moment I read her debut novel, Throne of Glass, and I continue to love everything she ever puts out. I think it's just so fascinating to me to see like how her stories unfold and to get to know her characters old and new as the books go on, and I thought this was a really satisfying and deeply emotional conclusion to read.
So my number 9 is Nixia. So again, also another odd BA kind of score where I'm just like, people are lining up for that book. What is it? No, they're just handing it out. Let me grab it. It's Nixia. Okay, whatever. I'll just put it on my pile because that's what you do at BEA. Totally not regret.
That's what he does.
Totally no regrets just grabbing this book because this is the summer blockbuster movie that was turned into a book, or vice versa. I don't know, but it has all of the elements: big action, big fight, big sequences, space. And a really relatable character with a really great kind of family background. So I love that. Person of color, so woohoo! Always fun to be well, not it's always fun to have that kind of representation, and refreshing as well. So super fun.
Speaking of emotional books, this next one is one also, and it's The Names They Gave Us by Emery Lord. It's about a girl who is dealing with the fact that her mother's cancer has returned, and in a bid to honor her mother's wishes, instead of volunteering at her usual summer camp, she ends up going to a different camp across the way, and there she kind of meets new people and gains a different perspective on life, and it's so good. I got really emotional reading this one, and I have loved almost every single one. Actually, I've loved every single one of Emery Lord's books, and I would highly recommend checking them out.
My number 8 would be, and we don't have it now because I borrowed it at the library, but I'm totally gonna grab it as soon as I can. It's called StarCraft Evolution. It is set after the events of StarCraft 2. Probably after the Nova Corps mission. So if any of you bookish folks are also StarCraft fans, hello. here's that connection there. Super great. It was written by none other than Timothy Zahn of Grand Admiral Thrawn fame. His character was the one thing that survived from the Legends universe into the official Disney Star Wars canon. I will not speak any more beyond that. A lot of the Star Wars fandom is very volatile these days. I loved how he was able to give voice to every single character. You could almost hear all of the voice actors in your head as they were doing, you know, all of these familiar scenes with these familiar characters. So that was really great. New take on the whole Xel'Naga thing. Fun, fun, fun.
My next book is not going to shock anyone either, because I talked about this book so much this year that I really like. I feel like if you haven't been paying attention at all, that is the only chance you will have had to not hear me talk about this book.
G. Starts with a W.
It's Warcross by Marie Lu. Shocker! I got everyone I know to read it, and everyone
pretty much everyone
really enjoyed it. So.
Even friends who don't like normally read were like, it's totally like Sword Art Online, you should try it.
It's basically like Sword Art Online. It's about a girl named Emika Chen, and she is a hacker, and one day she hacks into the official Warcross opening game and glitches into it.
And when people get to that part, they find out it's totally not like Sword Art Online, and it's its own thing.
She gets hired by the owner of Warcross to infiltrate the championship games because someone is trying to mess with the game, and so that's where that story goes. And it's so good. If you like anime, you'll probably like the setup of this story because it does kind of read like one, but also just fun and fast-paced, and it's really enjoyable.
My number 7 is Berserker. Yes.
Oh, I remember that.
Vikings meet cowboys story. That'll beat all Vikings meet cowboy stories pretty much ever. It's not so much cowboys, it's really Vikings meet the Wild Wild West.
I was gonna say it's more like Western, isn't it?
It's definitely, well, see, here's the thing. It's got that whole open frontier aspect of the Western, but it's really just a bunch of Viking kids going to, well, at least descended to the Viking, like, kings, you know, kind of fleeing to America because one of them, the girl in question, I believe her name is, we're gonna cut I want to say Han. Well, anyway, she's the lady of the Hampstead house because her younger sister is still pretty much like the younger sister, and she hates that. But that's, oh well, you'll grow up in a bit. But she's the berserker, and that's not the only gift in the Viking line or the royal Viking line. There's a bunch of other things too that have a terrible toll on the body and the soul when it happens. And I just love the lore. The lore is just so yummy. I did a review on it. All of the reviews should ideally be posted somewhere. And I highly recommend Berserker for a very fresh take on the Viking lore. So
the next book I'm going to show is kind of a cheat because it doesn't come out until the week after you guys see this video. So technically it's a 2018 book. But because I went to BA and I got to read it early, there was no question that this was going to be on my list because it's actually probably the one that would tie for Warcross as my #1 read of this year.
Interesting.
Because it was that good. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is her new series, and it's about a girl named Jude who, when she's around 7, she gets taken into the fairy realm with her sisters, and as a teen now she's struggling to remain in the fairy realm because she's immortal, clearly. So she's trying to prove that she's worthy of being there. And so there's a lot of court intrigue and complicated relationships in this one. And I absolutely loved it. I am not a huge fairy fan. Like, I don't love fae or fairies in general, but Holly Black's take on fairies is so damn good. I love this book so much. If you are looking for something to get excited about for 2018, definitely be excited about this one.
My number, I want to say 6 would be The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo. I love this. I'm attached to it because never have I seen, and that's probably, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just I live under a rock. But it's, for me, the best interpretation of the Monkey King kind of mythology from Chinese lore, and it's such a huge twist right off the bat. I'm not gonna say anything more, but this is, and you see a lot of it, the blurbs, like it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, yeah, because there's demons and there's like a superpowered teenage girl, but it's so much more than that. And the Monkey King aspect just gets so fresh, and I just love that there's this really cool, awesome Chinese girl kicking so much butt right now. I love this.
My next book is Geek Arella by Ashley Poston, and this is basically Cinderella meets a con. And so it's about a girl who's trying to get out of the house she lives in with her stepmother and stepsisters, and She does so by entering a cosplay contest at a convention for one of her favorite fictional worlds, and it's so cute and it's so funny and it's such a love letter to fandom too, which I really, really adored. So yeah, definitely check this one out as well.
Rounding up to our top, well, my top 5 anyway.
Not my top 5, guys. Remember,
Totally
mine is totally in order of how I read
Order
them.
of reading, ranking. This book had me in tears on this very couch. I was reading to the, I don't know, there was just something about the girl who drank
That
the
is,
moon.
I would also highly recommend that one.
Is she right? So it's almost like we get to, yeah, I totally, it's, see this little kind of Newbery middle, that's totally earned 800%. And even outside of this, the story, just the story itself is just beautiful. It's about a young girl who's raised in the woods because, you know, kids in this world or in that city are sacrificed in the woods at a certain age if they're picked. And she just happened to have been the one who had survived and decided to stay. And she drank a little too much of the moon, and now there's just way too much magic in her. So I can't, just that sold. Just
And
that
it's
idea
written
alone.
like a fairy tale too,
It's
so
written
I
like one
love.
of the best fairy. This is a perfect example of a modern fairy tale.
Yes, yes.
And I hope
I agree.
you know, I hope everybody I know and loves reads it. I love it that much.
One of my favorite books of this year was a girl power book, and that's Moxie by Jennifer Matthew. It's about a girl named Viv who, when she feels like the injustice between the, you know, the way that boys are treated versus the way girls are treated at her school is too much, she ends up kind of creating a zine, like the Riot Girl movement from like way back when. And it spirals into this gigantic movement where all the girls in her school kind of get involved and things start to happen. And it's so good. It's so empowering and such an inspiring read. I really think like everyone should be reading this book because it's that good.
Top 4, Howard Wallace P.I. Shadow of a Pug.
Middle grade bar. No kidding.
Middle grade.
No, what
middle
is
grade, Middle grade hard-boiled.
Hard-boiled.
It was described as middle grade noir, kind of hereabouts and whereabouts. But yeah, I did the little research, and because it's about a PI. He's, you know, he's a gum-chewing gumshoe because he can't smoke, right? He's 10, 12. Might as well be 3. He's very young, but he has a really good friend, and so Ivy. And what happens is, I read book 2 first because I just had so much fun with it. By the time I read book 1, it felt like a prequel. So that's how fun it is. So you could have read book 1 and this would be an awesome sequel, or you could have read this and book 1's it. And so it's a great friendship. It's just so real, and I just love these two so much. They're real people to me, and that's why they're my number 4 for the year.
Shocker, another Sarah J Maas book has made it onto the list. This is Tower of Dawn, and this is the 6th Throne of Glass book. Jeez, I'm losing track. This started out as a novella, actually. It was supposed to be a novella about Kael Westfall, who's my favorite character. But when Sarah wrote it, she couldn't help herself, and she ended up telling a full-on story featuring Kael, Nazrin Falik, who is someone he used to be in a relationship with, and a healer named Irene Towers, who you may or may not have met when you read The Assassin's Blade. And it is so good. It's such a compelling story of healing and of like redemption, really, for a lot of these characters, and I loved it so much. It was so good. Also, I just wanted to show it off again because this is what my friend Lauren made for me, and it's pretty.
Lauren is awesome.
Well, yeah, because she likes Shikamaru and Kakashi too.
Rounding down to number 3, when I start cheating a little bit because I do want to feature Illuminae and Gemina.
Of course you do.
I haven't read Obsidio yet because it's not out, but boy oh boy would I love to get like my hands on that book. But it is one of the funnest, most insane reading experiences I've had all year. It is the freshest. It makes it to number 3 because just the very, you know, concept of, you know, every single page is like a file from a case file dossier built up around the events surrounding the Carenza like system, and how this evil corporation may have done something terrible to the settlers. And this documents all of the, you know, intel that they were able to retrieve from what happens when those settlers try to get out of the terrible situation that this evil corporation put them in. So it's video transcripts and chat logs, and just it almost like I almost wish that they could build this experience out and just give you a box full of videos and
that'd actually be really cool.
Right, a box full of videos and transcripts and whatever, so you can have the full, you know, on experience of just the whole thing, and it was beautiful. Also, psycho robot mind AIs. That's I can't and super badass female characters. What's not to love?
Another highly emotional read for this year for me. It's a book called Far From the Tree by Robin Benway, and this is about 3 siblings who have been separated because one was adopted, one was put in the foster care system, and no, two were adopted, I'm sorry, and one was put in the foster care system. And it's sort of how they find their way back to each other in spite of the fact that they never met. They share the same mother, but they've never met. And it sounds so simple, but the way she executed it was so good. The build-up was so good, and I cared so deeply about the siblings and their relationship. Not just between the three of them, but also with their own like little family units. It's so moving. I was like sobbing through the last half of this because it was that like intense. It's possibly because I have a lot of siblings too, so. And I was feeling all of those feelings that they were feeling. Oh, well. And it's just so beautiful. It's such a good book. So underrated. Definitely needs more people reading this one. Number 2, I thought this was gonna be number 1, but I totally bumped it down, and I'll explain why. But it's a very, very close. Oh no, I know
number 2. It could have been number 1. Akata Witch. Nnedi Okorafor is a genius. I can't even begin to say what kind of a genius she is because she's amazing. What she has done with Akata Witch, the richness of the lore and the richness of the characters and the simplicity, but the well put together kind of plot that she was able to wrangle together. All those 3 things present in one book. So it's holistically an experience that is easily one of the best that I've ever experienced reading anything. My imagination has not run this wild and crazy in ever. I think this is the one that really got my wheels spinning, so it's just amazing. Totally recommend that you guys pick it up. My next book is Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills, which I read fairly recently. If you wonder why the cover looks slightly different, it's actually because this is the Al Craig cover of the book. This is about a girl named Claude who has pretty much flown under the radar most of her high school life, but then suddenly finds herself in like this very scandalous position because she overhears a breakup between 2 of the most popular girls at school. And the story kind of just escalates from there because she ends up pairing with one of the girls in the breakup for an English class project, and they end up having to audition to be a part of their school's presentation of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And there's a cute boy, there's an unlikely friendship, there's like a surprising like amount of growth for this character who really had her own little circle and didn't really venture out of that. It's so good. It's such a simple story, but like just the way it was written was so compelling. Claude is such a great character to follow. It's so fun to see how complicated her relationships are. The family ones, the friend ones, even the romance one, and I'm just like, it was so good. I just really enjoyed it, and I finished it and I was just so happy. So you guys definitely need to check this one out if you haven't already. Winding down to my number 1 book, again cheating because this is an entire series. It's 5 books. That's okay. Plus a sequel that happens thousands of years into the future. The Tapestry series. It's oh my goodness, I can't even, like, I just bought everything that had to do with the Tapestry. It is it's a play on some Irish lore, right? So hence the Hound of Rowan, right? Cuchulainn and all of these lovely folks. And it's set, and what's unique about this thing is normally and this is the one semi-spoilery thing that I want to say. Normally, books will span, tons of chapters and volumes just so you can stop the big bad thing. Here, it doesn't exactly play out that way. Pretty early on, it gets really intense, and you go, and it's so rich still. I highly recommend this for anybody who wants any kind of middle grade freshness, because I don't hear enough about the Hound of Rowan. I feel like I barely hear about this series. Right, but it's gold. My goodness, I can't even. And what's funny is I read Imperium first, which is again thousands of years after the events, and I thought, I wonder what happened to this world prior to that. And it's all these 5 books, 4 of which you can buy paperback, and the last one is just like a Kindle one. So the Red Winter. I was like, I don't even remember what it's called. Like Red Wedding, but it's great, and I highly recommend it for anyone who loves this kind of middle grade stuff. I would even say I like it better than Percy Jackson, but that's just me. No love lost for Percy Jackson. It kind of just got bumped up because crazier things have happened. Still love Percy and the crew on both coasts. Love them so much. But I think Macky will be very happy about the last book I'm going to mention, because it also makes sense. Like, it could have also contended. I actually think this could have contended for my actual #1 read too. Interesting. Battle Magic by Tamara Pierce, which is the last book that she published in the Circle series. Yes.
It is about Briar and Rosethorn and Evie, and they are caught in a war in Yanjing. That's basically the entire plot of this. It's just well written, like story-wise, it's so good.
It's so good. Multiple POVs.
The multiple POV is actually another of my favorite parts because you get to hear from all three of those characters, and I love them dearly. And I think like the way it's written has such a great emotional through line for each of them.
It's just insane.
So it's so epic. It's so good. It is a heavy read because of war, obviously, but it's just so good, and I loved it so much. I read this on a plane, and I was like, I can't stop, even though this is
I did
really
warn her though. Like at least there was some warning there. Where like, okay, I'm gonna hold your hand while you're reading this because this is crazy.
Those are my favorite reads of 2017, and those were Macky's favorite reads of 2017. There are a lot of other books I could think of that I would want to give a shout out to.
But that's just
since
this
we
video's
decided
gonna
10,
turn in.
we're gonna say 10.
This video's gonna turn into like a 2.5 hour kind of marathon rehashing the entire year because it was a good year for reading.
Yeah, it was a really good year.
Really good year.
I really read a lot of good books this year.
Books, graphic novels, manga, even movies. My God, it was pretty good.
That's a whole other video waiting to happen.
But for now, this is what we've picked, and you know, as the cream of our pretty much collections.
Yeah.
That's not even a real metaphor or figurative speech.
Well, if you guys have read any of the books, let us know in the comments. We hope you love them as much as we did. And if you have anything on your top 10 that you haven't ever seen us talk about, do recommend them. We'd love to know what your top 10 reads were for 2017. This is our last video, actually, that's going up before New Year's. Isn't that crazy? We're at 2018.
Interestingly enough, I saw one of those, for those of you who are on Facebook, they usually tell you on this day, this is what happened. And I did see sometime June last year where I said it would be nice maybe if I could start blogging.
Ta-da!
Here we are.
Here we are, almost a year later. Anyway, that's it for now. See you in the new year. Bye!